Yes, sir. We back in here. Of course, I got my patented the YT water as always. Last time they didn't have it, but y'all know we got to do the daily water show off whenever we go live. Again, as always, get you the best water possible. And like on this one, there's your dissolved solid. And you want dissolved solids in your water because water is good for the body, but water is even better when it is mineralized because your body uses your water mixed with minerals to hydrate your system. Always remember that. We'll repeat this every time I do a live stream. Your water should have minerals because the minerals help hydrate the system. When the minerals are more alkaline, you have alkaline water. Less alkaline minerals and chemicals added, you're going to have acidic water or acid water. So the minerals are not just to make it alkaline, but it does because it's the right alkaline minerals. But water and mineral together is what hydrates your system. All right. So keep in mind if you are in this live stream, I hope you got a chance to see Black Panther Wakanda Forever because there will be obvious spoilers that come along with that. We are, man, when did the movie come out? It came out in November. So here we are with nearly 2 months past. Freddie Dollars in the building. What's going on? Let me know you can hear my volume pretty well. I hope you can, right? But yeah, hopefully, like I said, hopefully y'all saw the movie already because there will be spoilers unless you don't care. You know, I get a lot of people I talk to in the streets. They don't care. They just want to hear the perspective, right? At the same time, although I'm primarily talking about Black Panther, I needed to be known that there are parameters under which I speak about this movie. Number one, being a black person, and I'm looking at the representation for the black community. It has nothing to do with being against anybody else. It's our representation is lacking. So when we get representation, I tend to scrutinize it a little bit. So it's about black representation and community. How well do you know the comic books? And the social implications that come with it, social and political implications. Those three things are important. Now, based on how people have rated the movie and how I rate the movie, the reason you hear such a mixed crowd, people who like it, hate it, some people in the middle, it's because of those three categories I just named. And the more of those categories that are important to you, the lower the ranking the movie tends to get. Okay? So again, if you are a black person thinking about representing the black community, the political implications and the cultural and community based implications of the movie, and your knowledge of comic books when you were growing up. You don't have to have a lot of knowledge of it, but we're talking about Black Panther and alongside Black Panther, representation of black people in movies, media, and so on and so forth. And that's the eyes under which I'm going to be talking about what Black Panther Wakanda Forever and regular Black Panther and the way we look at the community as a whole. So keep that part in mind. If you're one of those people who's looking for it to be, um, don't get me wrong, I'm a pretty balanced person. I look for the balanced argument in things, but there's no balance when it comes to our culture in society. So it's going to clearly make it seem like I have more of a negative perspective if you're trying to compare it to other cultures. You should not compare the plight of blacks in America to other cultures. We're behind. That's a given. We're trying to catch up. And by trying to catch up, it's not okay to be happy with everything you get. I can name what I'm happy about, but at the same time, you want things to be represented well. Because if you start being happy about anything without proper representation, then later on you wind up being in the same boat. That's pretty much it. Kenneth Williams in the building. What's going on? So what we don't want to be is we look at things critically. We say what's good. We say what's bad because we don't want to be in the same boat as time goes on. And unfortunately, when it comes to the black community, and this isn't just some black people fault thing, because I'm one of those people who look at things holistically. A lot of the positions that we are in as American blacks has to do with the fact that for years the primary leaders of this country was against us and any progress we had, and other cultures come in assimilating into that culture. So when they come in and see things differently than we do, it's because they're coming in with outside eyes and outside predicaments, and they're also under the scrutiny of the fact that You can come over here, but you can be sent back. An American black person, there's no sending back. They can't say we're gonna send you back to Africa. We weren't there. We may be descendants from, but we weren't there. So I'm letting these things be known as a prerequisite before I start explaining that the rating under which you give the movie is based on those primary three things. If you know the comic books, obviously you should have seen the movie. If you didn't, I'll give you some pretty good details to go with it. You should have seen the movie. But are you an Americanized black person or looking at the representation of black people? And what are the social implications across the board? Knowing where we live and how people tend to view us based on how we're portrayed in the media. Okay? So I just wanted to set the tone with that so that everybody understands my perspective on the movie is about the black community, Americanized black community as a whole. That's what it's based on. There's no, other cultures this, other cultures that. Because if you make the comparison, you have to say that our histories are the same, and they're not. Okay, so that's not how we're gonna do it. RTP is in the building. What's going on? All right. I wrote a few notes because I had so much going through my head. It's impossible to keep up with it all if I don't have the notes. So what I'm gonna do is now I'm taught in retail, right? Normally they tell you to come out with the good stuff. And I could do that if people really want to, they're just looking for that. Oh, I want to see if he's, this way or that way. How do you say it? Jerron? I think it's Jerron, right? What's going on? The thing is, people want you to say the good before the bad because then it's easier to swallow what the negative criticisms might be. In this case, I'm setting parameters. So, but we can do that. All right. So before I go over my list that I got right here in my book, I'll tell you what, I'll go over what I thought was good in both movies, and then I'll go over this list, and then I'll start addressing what the situations are. So for those who may have seen it, probably Black Panther 1. Let's go over the gist of Black Panther 1 first. I don't think I ever did a review on Black Panther 1, but overall, right, it grossed a lot of money. Cool. Because what that says is something that they kept saying. They kept saying that primarily African Americans and black people in movies wouldn't make a lot of money. That was like a belief system. And what happens is, it just so happens that Disney had enough money to really take a stab into it to see what would happen, right? Okay, cool. Correct pronunciation. Good. So the first Black Panther, what was good about it? Okay, the comic book of Black Panther came out. I got that in my notes. July 1966. The first major motion picture from the biggest black superhero comic book got released in February 2018. That's about a 51-year difference before you finally got the most renowned black superhero on screen. Now, pay attention to what I'm saying. The most popular black superhero from the comics to big screen is Black Panther. Blade was the reason why we reached this point if I had to look at the past, because they did a very good job. When Blade was created, Wesley Snipes, the writers, the production, and the cast and all that, they did such a good job that it created a future pretty much for Marvel to be able to be where it is today. Does that make Blade the most popular thing out there? It was up there, but no, it was still Black Panther when we're talking about comic book characters. That was the most popular one. Okay, it wasn't Black Adam, clearly, you could tell. Black Adam, I think they grossed somewhere close to 400, and they're probably climbing and trickling up, and if you do worldwide, you'll get a little bit more. But not Black Adam. Black Panther. When they said Black Panther was being released under Marvel and that movie dropped, they went into the billions. So that worked out. Now, with that being said, in the lexicon of Marvel movies, Black Panther doesn't make it halfway up the list for me, because a big part of making it up the list for me is rewatchability. And the first Black Panther does not have high rewatchability for me. Infinity War, Endgame, pretty much the Captain America movies, pretty much anyone he was in. The Hulk movies were not that great. One of them was cool, but the original one, nah. What else was in there? Iron Man is way up there. And outside of Marvel, the Batman series, the most recent one with the Dark Knight. Those are movies like, if you give me Batman Beyond, the Dark Knight, and Batman, I believe, Not Forever. Y'all probably remember what the third one is, but But that three series of Batman that not just came out, not the most recent one, but y'all know what I mean with Dark Knight in there. That was that has huge rewatchability for me. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about giving a movie a rating. And Black Panther of all the Marvel lexicon movies, it's probably just below the half point if I were to name all the movies and then rank the ones that are inside the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point. So and Infinity War and Endgame being at the top for me. They did Thanos great. It's one of my favorite comic book characters. So for that reason, they brought him in well before those movies dropped. Then they hit everyone with the shocker on Infinity War. I've never seen people walk out of a movie theater like that, whether you know comics or not. And then they hit you with Endgame, and it's almost like they repeated. So it was hard to say which one was better. But that's what I'm talking about when I'm ranking. Like, you got to have good cinematography, good writing, good acting, and then the rewatchability factor's got to be there. The first Black Panther cinematography was cool until the end. You got some childlike bad graphics, with him and Killmonger fighting down in the train track area. That was the part that wasn't great. But other than that, the costume design, the location design, the look that you would want someone of the prestige of Black Panther to have was there. So the art department did its thing. That was the good part. When it comes to representation within the culture is where it slips and drastically falls. And the thing is, it was headed in a good direction for part two to be great. So it was a great introduction. So I don't want to take too much from it. But here's what I was looking at in that movie. So already off the rip, majority black cast, cool. Great cinematography for the most part. Cool writing, cool effects, all that stuff, costume design, all that is good. Now we start getting deeper into the movie. Who do we have? We got T'Challa, who is soon to be king, but is Black Panther. We have his sister. We have the Dora Milaje, which makes huge. They're literally making the bulk of that movie. Like, their fighting skills are so good, they're making up the bulk of the movie. So Dora Milaje, positive. Acting, positive. The powers that are being shown off, positive. Where do we slip on culture? Okay. They're setting up for T'Challa to have a love interest in Lupita Nyong'o's character. Good. That's the setup. That's how you build. I'm okay with that. So we're setting up to have a black family. Then we have black on black crime. Good writing behind the reason why. You have T'Challa and his dad, and then you have Killmonger and his dad. Killmonger is raised in America under American military, basically white American military leadership. T'Challa's raised royalty in the Black Kingdom by his father and mother. Now, in the comic books, T'Challa lost his father when he was very young. In this movie, he lost his father pretty much at an older age. Nonetheless, his father doesn't get much time. You lose his father, and we don't even get a funeral. Now, you don't lose him in the first movie, per se. You actually lose him in Winter Soldier, I believe, or Civil War. I believe it's in Civil War. So Captain America Civil War is where you actually lose his father early on, and there's no funeral. Killmonger realizes that T'Challa's dad killed his dad. Why? Because T'Challa's dad's brother, which is Killmonger's father, tried to take the vibranium, which is the thing that makes the whole country powerful, to the Americans and sell it off. So that's betrayal. So in the comics, T'Challa is all about Wakanda. He's not about the rest of the world. He's kind of selfish when it comes to that. It's all about my kingdom or nothing. Okay? So you got that's kind of in there, right? They soften the blow on that, but that's really how it is. It's to the point of damn near being stingy about it. If we're Wakanda, we look out for us. We don't bother nobody, but we look out for us. Y'all do y'all thing. Just don't mess with us. So you got Killmonger and you got T'Challa. And you got black on black crime. You got the two dads. One killed the other for betrayal. You got black on black crime. Again, putting that in as a story item to make us interested and relatable to the story is not the problem here. The problem here is when you take the implications of black culture in America today. What do we see too much of, and what are they exacerbating within our culture? The key, the whole purpose that the comic book of Black Panther was bought with was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby said to themselves back in the 1960s, a bunch of black people buy and read our comics, but we don't have any representation for them. So they made Black Panther albeit there was some funny racist on the, not that the, it was some funny racism going on because they actually had a name for him as Coal Pipe at a certain point, which is kind of like you know being out of touch, trying to develop a black character, you get stuff like that, right? But nonetheless, they put together Black Panther, and it kind of had what the Cosby Show was at a certain point. It had the effect of saying, here is a smart black person who can fight, who has tradition, who's from a royal line. So it breaks all the stereotypes. They have actual royalty problems and taking care of a country problem versus the rest of the world. So they're kind of into world politics, but with their own set of power that can allow them to isolate themselves from the rest of the world. So that's what's very important when it comes to that. So with that being said, as we get on later in the movie, we got Killmonger gets killed by T'Challa. They fight at the end because it was inevitable. That's the way it was written. Okay, cool. And at the very end of the movie, although I think I kind of like the way they pushed the message, I'm not a fan of that. Let's try and make a strong, powerful black nation find a way to cope and say, oh, we're so positive. We're going to give our technology and information over to a colonizing country because the world is just full of a bunch of people taking from one another. That's kind of world we live in. And Wakanda in the comics is like, man, look, you take care of ours over here. Y'all deal with y'all's over there. Y'all got issues. They would have never looked to say like, yo, we're going to find a way to introduce y'all to our technology and culture. But I would say at the end of the movie, when they were in the meeting of the different continents and cultures, you know, the collective, right? And T'Challa was there and they said, you're from a third world country. What could you possibly show us that could help us in our country? And they made him smile and they cut the scene. I thought that was cool because it kind of leaves you to, as a person, it leaves you to reflect on what would you do as that person. You know, I have something so great you don't even know makes me smile. I got a little something I can show you, or I got a lot. He could have did either one, but they left it up to you to determine that. The second thing at the end of the first movie that I thought they did well was when he came in one of the spaceships from Wakanda to a project complex. And in this scene, he lands and you find out he bought out this poverty stricken complex. And because he pulled up in like, you know, his royal vehicle, so to speak, right? The little kids in the neighborhood, they use little kids to come up to him. So you could tell that, you know, as they wrote the movie, I believe it was Ryan Coogler, as he wrote the story of the movie, he wanted to show how black children could see somebody like that. So when he pulled up, the kids came running over from, I think, the basketball court, you know, which, again, that's relatable. We're really big into sports and entertainment in the black community because it tends to be the area where you see people excel very well and the rest of the world accept them. So it makes sense when you're conditioned that way for that to be the thing going on. So the kids put the basketball down, run over to him. Actually, a lot of the kids run past him because they so hype about what the ship looked like. Sound familiar, right? You in the hood, oh, he got the Maybach, he got the Chrysler, he got the what do you call it, the slingshot, the Hellcat. We're like fascinated by expensive things, especially cars, right? So the kids run past him and they, oh, that's so cool. But one kid stops and says, who are you? That's the important. That was huge to me. So these are the things that gave the movie. Emmanuel Briggs in the building. What's going on? These are the things that gave the movie positive presence for me in the first one. So the first movie of Black Panther, like I said, in the lexicon of Marvel movies, it's not up there in terms of the best. It doesn't have rewatchability, but it has themes in there. Okay, certain themes that I'm not a fan of because they perpetuate things that go on that we don't like. That's not positive. Like it didn't seem like he was having problems of being from a royal culture. You could argue that, right? It seemed more like he was having regular hood problems, but as a royal person, right? My cousin want to fight me because my dad killed his dad for betraying people. But the reason you fighting me is because you need to take the power we got from the kingdom you were supposed to be a part of and go defeat the United States who was treating our people like trash. So again, you can look at that one way or another. You know, I totally understand. But to become a conqueror colonizer is to move backwards to me. And that was my issue with it. Killmonger seemed like he wanted to become like what America was, go to a bunch of countries and see what resources they got, slap them in the face, and after you slap them in the face and they get mad and they want to fight back, you point guns at them and say if they try and move, kill them, and then you instill people to watch that country, and then you start taking over their resources because you feel like you should have it and they shouldn't. I feel like Killmonger was becoming the embodiment of that. So he learned the uncivilized way that America does what it needs to do to keep the so-called freedoms, meaning again, keep other countries in check that you built your country off of by stealing and colonizing and things like that to get where you are. And now you're trying to take that colonization that you did in the past and you're trying to make it civilized for the future. That's the path, that's the path of growing. People who resort more to war and fighting are less civilized. People who learn how to talk and work things out, they are more civilized because they're learning to unify their differences and compromise certain things for the greater good. So that makes you more civilized. So that was America and the people who tried to lead America working out their civility. War was their thing because they felt like everybody had things they didn't. They wanted their place in history, so they said, I'm going to take. And then they took. And after a while, you only want to sleep with one eye open so much. So you're trying to find a way to hold on to what you built, while at the same time, now you're trying to make peace with the rest of the world. I need y'all to hear me out and why I'm making that point. Because when we get to Black Panther Wakanda Forever, as Black people in the Black community in America, we're suffering from an issue where we have never been made whole from the shit we've been through in history, and America wants to move on without making us whole. That's where you get the arguments about why LGBTQ this, why do women get this, that, and the third, and now you got Black man arguing against Black woman about representation and relationships, when really you are two disenfranchised people based on history, and another group of people, you've had this, the way you are in your community and in media has been perpetuated by negative things. You build your own community, they tear it down. You have your own civilization, they take from you and they subjugate you. Then you get slavery, then you get Jim Crow, and then you get the crack epidemic, and then you get most of your people jailed. And then after that, when there's opportunities, you're not allowed to have them until everybody else has kind of used it, abused it, and threw you the leftover, right? So when you have a world like that, and then the people are a product of that, and then they're beating each other up because they all feel like they can't trust each other because they don't have anything to build with anymore, and the rest of the world is trying to accept them while they have nothing to build with. So what do? You start getting all these arguments you see on the internet now where it's like, well, when I'm not dealing with Black people, I get this and that. Like there's a perception of white versus Black, right? If you're a Black person, I got to be careful, And I get it. There's two sides of that argument. The way that things have been for us in history put us in a bad economic and civilized position to the point where we don't trust each other. Now we're judging our entire community and culture, even the good ones, before you even get to know who they are, based on what you've been through. But that was construction. That was by design. And this is important when I'm talking about representation in media and movies, because it perpetuates that problem. If everything you look at and everywhere you turn around has you looking like a negative thing, then after a while, you think you are the negative thing. That's when you get videos like the ones online where people bleach their skin, and you can see them literally scratching the melanin off their skin. All the magazines that get put into the different cultures and places that have been colonized got skinny white people on the front, and their perception of beauty is always whiter skin, smaller nose, smaller lips. It ain't got nothing to do with symmetry, right? Because in ancient African traditions and ancient indigenous traditions, beauty had to do with symmetry. You see what I mean? So you beat down the people so much that every time they do something good for themselves, you take it, you destroy it, and you hand them back the worst of the worst. Then you get the drug epidemic to remove and break the family up. Break the family up. That's important. I want y'all to remember that. They break the family up. After they break the family up, you get the results of a broken family, which becomes slightly destructive. So you get a lot of destruction from that, and you get a few people who make it out. So they start trying to tell you the few people who made it out is why the others should be okay. It doesn't work like that. Most of the systems of the world are against you. When other cultures come into America, they say go into their communities because they're going to spend all their money on you. You see what I mean? So With that being said, right now, I'm gonna show y'all what I wrote. Things that I have seen in Black Panther and beyond, and then I'm gonna move into talking about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So here's what I noticed. Again, this is not me being against other cultures. This is me seeing what's going on with our culture as Black people in America. That's what I'm explaining. So when I explain these things, don't say, oh, but in white culture and Asian culture, they have that problem. You have to look at it from the perspective of we got beat down with the problem. For instance, if a white family's missing the father, that doesn't define their whole culture. For us, people define our whole culture. And if you add on to that economic disenfranchisement and no assistance, and then almost every other culture you talk to look at you like, don't do business with them, don't be around them, niggas this, niggas that, that's added on top of it. They don't have that story. There is white representation. If you go to Asian countries, go to Japan, China, Korea, they see movies and representation of themselves in life. So when they grow up, at least they have family, community, value system. We are Black Americans. Most of that was taken from us. And people allowed us to keep the parts that are destructive to us and allow us to make money off of it. That's why the rap culture is very dangerous the way it is right now. Because we do negative things, and you see the negative things we do, all of a sudden propel people to prosperity. So we start thinking, well, if I emulate that, I'll make money and people will love me. But before I do that, I need to sell drugs, beat women, treat women like trash, have a bunch of kids, don't take care of them. But I do all that just to get money and look good. That's not all of us as Black people, but in the media. I'm talking about movies and media and the way we're portrayed around the world and why movies can't just get away with saying, well, we did that part good, because the entire body of representation is very important when you're talking about a people who have been beaten down this much. Okay? So let me go to my points here, right? In movies in general, these are things that I wrote here in red that I constantly see them. It doesn't mean there aren't cases where these things are broken, which I would love for y'all to name some if y'all can think of some. Or if you can't name too many, say so in the chat because it's important. So, first things first, in movies, how often do you get full Black family representation? Start thinking, and how quickly does it pop into your mind? Mother, father, child. Now, I'm going to add on to this list later where when you do see full family, there's some caveats to that. And I'm going to mention them when I go along. So, full Black family representation. We did not get that at all in Black Panther. Chadwick Boseman's character was courting with Lupita Nyong'o's character in the movie, in the first one. He passed away, unfortunately, rest his soul. But instead of carrying forward the story of that character, they killed them all. In the second movie, spoilers again for people who haven't seen it, give y'all 5 seconds to roll out. Spoilers coming up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. In the second movie, we find out she has a child. So T'Challa wound up having a child, but he's dead. So I said earlier in the live stream, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee said they wanted to break stereotypes when they created Black Panther. So they gave him full family. Mother, father, child. They even had grandparents, even though the granddad died early. They had that. In this, now you have fatherless child, which is a negative theme in the Black community in media and in the world. We're talking about how we look in the world. Now, I know this ain't everybody. That might not even be the majority of us, but it's what's pushed in the media and in movies and in things that all other cultures and people can see around the world. It's basically like Brother George Macon, he in the chat now, what he said. The way the world sees us, it's kind of like when we're trying to shout down the hallway who we actually are, everyone else is shouting louder, so we can't be heard, which means we can't be seen. All right, so full family representation. Slavery movies, you get those. Perpetuation of a negative theme. You're looked at as someone who's subjugated. And most of the time in those movies, if you win the battle, you don't win the war. You're shown as primarily the loser. You might have your hand up because you won a battle, but in general, you lost the war. Second thing, subjugation in the slavery movies, right? That's why slavery movies is not a good thing, because you're a slave, and the victory story is somehow you escape slavery. These things happened in real life, but again, it's perpetuating not something that lifts us up. It's fight or flight. We always running away. We escape something. We survive something. We're never thriving, right? Next, our love interests in our movies are white. That's another thing. Hancock and Luke Cage. Yes, on Luke Cage, y'all remember if y'all seen the shows that was on Netflix at a point, Luke Cage was sleeping with the police woman, but it was called Coffee. But his actual kind of like love to be chased is Jessica Jones. That's the one where it's like he kind of like every time he around her, he's like kid, like a baby, right? Yo, if y'all are get rid of the if y'all are there, get rid of these let's see, block that. Yeah, there y'all go. That's what's up. Yeah, get rid of them joints. That's gonna always happen when you're doing the thing, right? So the love interest is white. Do I have a problem with black people and white people being together? If it is what it is. If y'all are happy, cool. Does it have a positive outlook when you come from? Because there is a negative side to it. It's not that the love and the being with the person is a bad thing. It's not about that. What it is something kind of like what Umar used to talk about. You're trying to say how beautiful and great black women or black men are, and a child sees you marry someone outside of that. It doesn't relate. It doesn't correlate to a child. They like, why do you keep talking about how great this person is? Because eventually a child's going to say, then why didn't you marry that? So again, this has nothing to do with real world, what you choose to do with yourself. I'm just showing you the implications of a black man in America and the ill representation of it that creates stereotypes and ways of life that are against our culture. And this movie kind of does that, even though it's getting things right. We can't just accept, oh, but this was good, so leave it alone. It's cool and all. No, there are things that are done well, but I have to give that bottom line that says, look, but at the end of the day, for our culture, it does not move us forward. Now, in terms of our our ability to thrive economically in the movie world as actors, won't argue. Black Panther was necessary to show that a black cast could pull big numbers for movies, and that's where it wins a lot of categories. Like a lot of people who put it at the top of the Marvel list of movies, they base it on how much money it's made. Like you'll say that Jordan is the greatest player ever because he has the most championships, and I'm like, well, you got to use another argument because Robert Ory has more championships than Jordan, and he averages 0.3 points a game, but he's got one ring more than Jordan. So it ain't just about that. You gotta look at all the details, okay? And that is exactly my point, Amber. Earlier in the live stream, do you remember what I said? Black people in America got beat down really hard. Other cultures didn't. America's trying to create a culture that moves on without making the black person whole again. It's almost the basis of a reparations argument. I'm not against the fact that black can be with white, with Asian, and all this and all that. That's fine. That's going to happen because again, they're trying to move forward. They're trying to They're trying to do things that help unify it. But this is the problem. You could unify a lot of people and have all this mixing, but you're still going to have that bitter culture because you were never made whole. That's why Umar brought up the fact that if a black man gets rich and he marries white, women live longer than men. So you just transferred your wealth to white. And if that white person has a child and that child marries another white person, you just transferred the wealth of your people to that community. So because the rest of the world looks at you on a race base, and I've been around it enough, Indian person would rather see their child marry white than black. They were Asian people don't even, some of the cultures are like, we don't do business with black. They do business with others, but not with black. So when you say, oh, well, I don't see this and that, the world doesn't look at it that way. Some of us do, which is where you're able to unite and unify with another culture. Again, I'm not against that. But just, I want you to understand through my words and what I'm saying, that the world still cares about color in the grand scheme, in the economics, in the culture, in the perception around the world. They don't mind when it's like, but oh, that's beautiful over there. That over there is fine, right? For you black people, why are you so mad? Over there is fine. They accept, see, we accept you because of the few here that accept you. But try and make that the main message in the entire world. It's not gonna fly. And there's a bunch of history and economics that prove that. And that's the point that I'm making. Some have learned to move on and say, okay, the world's moving forward. White likes black, black likes white likes Asian, black likes Asian. It's mixing now. But you still have a large bulk of a people whose culture, basically what you could wind up with, if this thing were moving at warp speed, you could wind up with a bunch of black people in shitty relationships, another subset of black people in good relationships but with outside cultures, but you tear down the relationship of black and black so much, you eventually dilute the entire culture out. That's what I'm talking about. Future implications, economics, culture, all that. Where does that group of people have a leg to stand on in the future? Because the way it's going, anytime they try and unite, something breaks it apart. But if they unite with somebody else because it's positive for their situation, those things go well. But once they gain what they're looking for from you, they don't look to remix again. They say, now put that in the pot of our own culture. So race still exists even when it looks like it don't. And that's the important part that I want people to understand. Let me see. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when I was coming up in high school, guys used to make jokes. Oh, that's why you black, and they would laugh, right? And they see me laughing in the background, and they're like, yeah, they think I'm laughing because they think I'm laughing because what they said is funny, like some, as if that's why you black is a funny line. But when they asked me, when they checked me to see if I was laughing over that, I was like, no, I'm not. I was like, I actually find it funny that you're saying that person is ugly because they're black. And they was like, well, because they are, because them black women, and they try and justify it. So I say, okay, cool. So I'm like, take a walk with me around the school real quick. And I'm showing them beautiful black women, left and right. Oh, well, not them and not them. And see, but you picking them. And I was like, no, what I'm trying to show you is what we deem as beautiful is across the board. There's people who are not beautiful to different people. Hey, it's not like I can go to certain cultures and say because they're white or light skinned that they're automatically beautiful. That's not true. Like, there are people who are unattractive and people who are attractive across all cultures. So it was just interesting to me that he could say, well, yeah, there's a black girls be ugly, but then at the same time, when I take you around the school and show you beautiful black women, you're like, oh, but not them. And I'm like, wait a minute, her skin's dark. Doesn't that qualify as the ugly that you just said? Well, no, I was like, I want you to see my point. I was able to do that because my family didn't really have, when I grew up, it wasn't like a pro-black message. I just saw a lot of black people in my community. That was it. We didn't have big countries about the white man, big discussions about the white man this and the white man that. I didn't grow up under that. Actually, I did quite well being mixed in with other groups of people, especially Asian. So I'm not coming from the perspective of I saw other cultures trash black people, but I did learn the history, and I am an artist. And in art, I got to learn and see it for myself. I've been in plenty of racist situations that I can tell stories about, and I even had many where people were on the phone with me where I told them, just listen and watch what's happening. So it's not that these things don't exist, okay? So I wanna make those things clear as I keep going. So I gave y'all, we don't really get full family representation as a full black family. You usually get a lot of slavery movies, which shows you in a subjugated position. The love interest, if there is a full family in the movie, in most cases is going to be white or some form of light-skinned person. So you don't get darker skin representation because that was what the media was against. The gang and drug theme is overdone. It gets a lot of attention, but that's because, again, our community is groomed into that. We can relate to it because it really does happen. But it really does happen because it was the conditioning of our community by moving those things through our community, putting us in poverty, moving the drugs in as a coping mechanism. Some people found them how to make money off of that coping mechanism. Others found out how to cope with the negative mechanisms like drugs. Okay. What else we got? Either the main character dies or they're weak in majority of the movies, right? So these are themes that I commonly see for American black men in movies. That's what I'm naming off right now. I'm going through the negative ones. I got some other stuff at the bottom. All right. So in the case of Black Panther, the main character died. The problem is the main actor died, but the character did not die until they unified the two. So now what was supposed to be the legacy of something T'Challa started is now beginning and ending with him, and they're calling that, because people say I don't see anyone else acting them. No, there were people who didn't see anyone else acting as Superman or as Batman or as Spider-Man, but you got more of them. You never know if someone else can act a character until someone else does it. You have to allow other personalities to take on the character so you can say, this feels different, I like it. You can't just say that guy over there is exactly it and nobody else. Now, if he created the character, fine. But no, he was the best actor so far because he was the only actor. And you just took that off the books. So now you don't even have that anymore. You don't have the character anymore. So a character and an actor that came in and helped bring a movie up to the 1.5 billion mark in terms of gross sales, you kind of just said that we don't really value the character. We only cared about the actor. So we will never give anyone else a shot. You didn't even have to give him a shot right away. You could have still made the second movie the way it was, but had plans for the future of T'Challa coming back. And I know people are going to say, oh, but they still probably could. We're going by what Marvel said themselves. They said there will be no more Black Panther in the 616 universe. They said, I can only respond off to what they said, not the possibilities, not, oh, but they could change their mind, they could this and that. It's where it is right now. Okay? Yeah, if you give it years, you can get another actor. But if we're in a position now where crime rate is high. The way people look at the Black community is not better, it's actually worse. It's like people look like it's getting worse. You need the representation now. Years down the road, it could possibly not even matter at that point. And that's what I'm saying. And in the timing where it matters is where they need to get it together. Now, we could say, oh, well, we should build our own movies. It's not like we don't do that. But again, we're economically disenfranchised. The only way to get that kind of money behind us to even build that kind of movie is we have to find a way to make the richest among us, which I have a picture. I don't know if I posted it yet for you guys to see, but there's only 15 Black billionaires in the entire world. Only 2 are American. 5 of them are from the Caribbean, and I believe all except 2 of them are musicians and entertainers. Rihanna, Jay-Z, it was Kanye West. I think those are the ones I can peel off the top of my head. Beyonce, Oprah, those are the ones I can peel off the top of my head. So I'm just showing you this theme, this pattern that's going on, right? Let's keep going. If the children are in majority of the movies, they're mixed. The movies have a single parent home. Now, in the hero movies, most of their powers are technical. Most of the Black heroes are not supernatural. They're technical. Cyborg, Black Panther, these are not supernatural. These are technical. Remember, the suit is made of vibranium. Now, I get it. You could argue halfway with Black Panther because they have the Purple Heart. And you take the Purple Heart and it gives your body abilities. And then you put the suit on top of that. So I'll give you that argument if you make it. But you got Cyborg. You got, in the Iron Man movies, you got War Machine. That's tech. You have Falcon. There was an actual Falcon in the comic book. Now it's tech. And if you saw Falcon and Winter Soldier, his ability to fight was trash. He's supposed to be the next Captain America, and his fighting, he gets his ass kicked a lot. So there goes that. Blade is close, but Blade fits the description of no family, no love interest. See? But excellent movie. See what I mean? I can give you what was good, but look at the themes that keep repeating for us. Hancock, white love interest, and he wasn't exactly a model citizen. What else? What other comic book characters we got that I actually know of? Black Adam. Black Adam is superhuman, so I'll give him that. Why is this connected? Cancel that. Okay. Black Adam is superhuman. With the powers coming from the council. So we give you Black Adam. Okay, we got Black Adam. We could say Blade. We kind of 50-50 with Black Panther. But no, we don't have Cyborg. We don't have War Machine. We don't have Falcon anymore because that's all tech. There's 2 movies I can't give you the name of that came out where they tried to say it was new Black superhero. And let me tell you, that first one they came out with, which I can't remember the name of, and I think it begins with an F. It was a little boy who they said was supposed to be the first Black superhero or something like that. That movie was trash. Because actually, the best part about the movie was he represented STEM. He was an engineer. The so-called powers they said he had was he put something like, he didn't do it right. He put something dangerous that he engineered into his arm that allowed him to move things. but he was pretty much a punk ass most of the movie. So you know, his engineering ability was cool, but that movie didn't pump you up to feel like being an engineer. So there goes that. Um, who else can I think of? Y'all got any more? Um, don't get me wrong, it's more black characters, but that's the problem. The fact that I'm not like churning them things out for y'all. Um, there's another one who I think hangs with the Fantastic Four crew. Everyone was saying, oh, Spectrum, aka I think her name's Ion. She was in the Disney special. She's supposed to have I'm trying to figure out how she got her power, but there's another one, and that was good black woman representation right there. Spectrum in God damn it, what is her name? Magneto's daughter. She's a big character in Doctor Strange and all that stuff like that. But she has like the power of manipulating magnetic fields, and she has red on and all that. She's the Scarlet Witch basically. But Spectrum was in that movie. But here's the problem. If you look at the history of Spectrum, and so far they're building her character nice, we might actually get something legit as a black woman superhero. The issue I got so far is Captain Marvel, the blonde-haired white superhero whose movie was trash. Ion is a oh, my friend who was missing, who was there. I hope they don't build her up and make her be like an underling to Captain Marvel, because right now that's still hanging in the wind. We can have a powerful black woman, black superhero, supernatural superhero who so far got good representation, but they could kind of make her subsidiary to Captain Marvel. And I'm hoping they don't do that in the Marvel. Like, oh, she's here. She was a big friend of hers when she was growing up. And because she's a big friend of hers, and we know Captain Marvel got like Superman-like quality, I hope they don't do that. Oh, black woman's powerful, but so hurt and not doing what she needs to do because her white friend's missing. I hope they don't play that game. Like, let her stand alone, then show the friendship. At least keep her story as the top thing for her, and include the friendship in it, but don't make it the primary reason she moves. I hope they don't do that. Okay. Worse than Meteor Man. But Meteor, all right, Meteor Man was fun. Like, for me, that's nostalgic when you say that. It's like saying Blank Man, but Meteor Man was kind of nostalgic. All right, what else we got? Last one, black on black crime. I explained that one earlier. So you get a lot of these things. I'm gonna reread the negative list, and I'm gonna get into some good things, which I actually kind of mentioned earlier. So in black representation, majority of the time, these are the things we get, which go against the principle of the Black Panther comic book originally created. We don't get full family representation. Love giving us slavery movies, and again, trying to make a positive twist out of a negative thing, right? We escaped though, or we won the battle, lost the war kind of thing. So that's why slavery is like, that's just black trauma porn, okay? The love interest is white. The gang and the drug theme is too overused. The main hero dies or is weak, even if he gets the victory. It's usually because of other people on the outside. Like, there's plenty of movies I can name to you where there's like a white coach. So, of course, it makes people think of Rocky, right? Because y'all remember when Apollo Creed and Rocky, when Apollo Creed was training Rocky. But remember, Apollo Creed got destroyed in the ring. Rocky, the one who won. So, good movie though. I ain't gonna say it's a bad movie. All right. The children, if we have any, in most cases, are not. It's not both black parents and a dark skinned child. You usually get a mixed child. Like, somehow you'll even get like both parents are like brown skin and the child's even lighter. Like, you'll get something like that, right? But I'm just trying, and there's nothing wrong in general about that. It's just, again, media, movie representation. If you see something too much, you start to act according to it, which brings up what I said earlier when I said in school, you got people like teasing dark skin or black girls. You're ugly because you're dark or black. And I had to be the one to show people that that's not really how that works. And it took all these years until now, where it's black magic, black powers. You got these ultra dark skinned chocolate models and stuff, because that's them finally having the confidence they should have had back then as a child. Where if you were white, Asian, and stuff like that, and you weren't dark, you naturally got it. At least you didn't have to worry about that, right? If you was just ugly, you were just ugly. They didn't say you're ugly because of your skin color. You didn't get that. All right. Single parent home. Most of the heroes have technical, not really big deal, but I noticed that tends to be there, right? They're not supernatural. They're usually technical, and someone else gave them the tech. In Cyborg, his dad didn't want him to die, so he made him technology. Okay, cool. I ain't got a lot of arguments with that one, but I do notice. Okay, and black on black crime. All right. Now moving forward, some good stuff. It's a few points here that like I said, I named a few of them in Black Panther earlier. The cinematography is good. The acting is good. In Black Panther 2, the cinematography and acting were good. The wardrobes are good. In Black Panther 1 and 2, the visual representation of the wardrobes, the look of their home location is beautiful. Same thing happened with the Aztec people, which I'm drawing so many blanks on names in the second movie, but even their location was beautiful. So the cinematography, the acting, the wardrobe's great, and the powers are pretty cool, right? Blade, the abilities were cool. Black Panther, the abilities were cool. Marvel just has their way of doing that thing. Those things are beautiful. So those are the things that are good. Okay, we know our acting is good. We can name tons of actors who represent us very well, from Angela Bassett all the way to Denzel Washington and Will Smith, Don Cheadle, even Terrence Howard. We have good representation. So we know we have. This is the part where it's like, this is your representation as black people over here. This is look at all the negative stuff. You got the few people over in the corner, and they don't spend more time giving much credence to them. What they do is they use them to justify the hell caused in the community to the rest of them. Hey, if these people made it, you should be able to make it. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But here's a part that Kanye West actually made sense about. They allow you to be successful as a one-off, not in groups. Black people in groups are not allowed to be a huge success. And if you say something like, oh, what about the Black Lives Matter movement? We didn't own it. 3 black women ran it and white people funded it. That was that. And that was more of a representation for the LGBTQ community, which for some reason, if you're black and LGBTQ, you represent more LGBTQ than black. Those got pitted against each other to the point where they did it like Asians. What's up with blacks against trans people and gay people? I'm not saying that doesn't exist, that the harm don't happen, but how did the whole culture get singled out for it, right? How did no other culture get singled out for it as if it's not a problem to them too? With Asians, they found some issues with Asians and blacks in New York, and it turned into blacks against Asians, to the point where the government actually wrote up a petition to say, here's reparations, so-called, right? It wasn't, I don't believe it said reparations, but it was a pot of money that came across like reparations for Asians in Pacific Islands. Now, you got black people over here yelling down the streams on why they need reparations. People agree, although you got counter arguments about the debt's too high, we don't have the money, but then they pull that money out of their ass for Asians and Pacific Islanders. If they need it, they need it, cool. But why is there always a justification against black people getting their just due in America and everybody else can get theirs? You got to ask yourself these questions. Like I said, we get hit from all ends to this day, where everybody else get to just, we got basic everyday problems. I got a few people, when someone hates me and my culture, they're racist and they're a one-off. When black people say like, yo, I got a problem with this group of people, because that group of people in majority, now that's a case where in majority, we get treated like shit. In the public and outside the public. Nobody want to acknowledge that as a group thing. We want to acknowledge that as one-off. You see what I mean? So now you slam us in the media, in the newspapers, the news, you take away our advantages. When you try and say you're going to give us something, you trick word it. You'll say something like, black people have been treated like hell, and it is true, and we really need to give them their just due. We need to help these people come out of poverty and all that. Yes. Then the bill gets written. We're going to write the bill, and this is going to help all minorities. As if minority is just black. It's not. Then later on, you find out it's a big pot of money for black businesses. It was supposed to be. They wrote it up as minority, and then you find out 1% of the black people got the help, and the rest were the minorities. And then they try and say stuff like, well, the black people who applied were a joke. They didn't have their paperwork ready, their business plans and all that stuff like that. See, we have these things, but they're just not ready. And I'm like, because all the other stuff in society isn't corrected yet. You're trying to give me, you want to give me a house without teaching me how to clean. You want to give me land without teaching me how to build on it. You withhold the ability to build on it. So when you give me the land, I can't make any money on it, and I sell it back to you. Then you devalue the money that you gave me for selling it. So I lose in the end. So some people say, well, don't give black people money with the reparations. They're going to spend it all. You see what I mean? Everybody else gets the one-offs. We get whole community. It's a bunch of us doing positive things. We're just split up. You give a certain amount of black people the right amount of money, and the ideas they once had in their head that they were scared to execute because when they lose something, they got to spend double and triple time getting it back. Now they can make a mistake and climb right back on their hind horse and try again because they got the money to do it. Now you start to see more black excellence, but that's the one unanswered question. You can't say let's wait until black people are woke and learn how to operate like this and that. Who defines our community? Because right now all that's coming from outside. And the few people who hate their own people on the inside because they grew up in the same disenfranchised communities I was just talking about. You can't come out as the best person in your community, see the bullshit in your community, blame the people in your community, forget about the shit that caused the thing in your community, and then become an advocate against those people getting what will help their situation. See? So now you just turned an issue where all cultures were looking at us a certain way. Now they found our own people to talk about us the same way, aka who? You can't. You understand our history. You found people operating based on our history, and now you talk against us, knowing that the history happened. Because you had the wherewithal in the mind that says, let me take a different path and work my way out. As if it ain't people who made that choice but didn't get your result. So they're even more bitter because they actually tried to work the system and they didn't make it, but you did. So now you're going to say because it worked for you, it's guaranteed to work for everybody else. Coon. Lack understanding. It doesn't mean we don't hold black people accountable, but goddamn, give them something to be held accountable to. Don't put them in a shitty situation and say, I'm going to give you a little nugget. You need to be happy for the nugget. And when I flick your nugget away, so you ain't even happy with the little bit that I gave you. Motherfucker, you the reason I got a little bit. And I'm bitter because of it. So giving me crumbs and telling me to work out the crumbs, you telling me to take a you're telling me to work my way up the chain when you got jumped ahead of me. All right, let's go. I talked about when the comic first came out, 51 years till the first major motion picture came out. Your primary character in the comic books was not the Black Panther, it was T'Challa. The Black Panther comic books was built on the life and the trials of T'Challa. His childhood, when he was under his father, becoming a king when he was very young, becoming a king, operating as Black Panther. When someone else operated as Black Panther, he had to manage his family and he had to manage a country as a king. You see what I mean? It was telling the story. The Black Panther was a part of the storytelling about T'Challa. So taking T'Challa out, which is why I said in the very beginning, to understand why the movie gets put at the bottom of the pile for me, is because you have to understand the comics too. If you're just saying I'm black and we look really good in the movie and someone gave us a chance and we did good acting and look at the grosses that we got and that's all you want, okay, fine. That's what you got to work with. Cool. I'm not against that. But you got to remember the social implications because you're going to have your actors make a bunch of money. And the bottom line is, in your community, the same shit's going to continue to happen because you're not addressing the total problem. You're addressing a piece and trying to make it the all. Can't do that. Let's talk about the money made in the movie. So, before that, I got another line here. Who died in the movie? Remember, this thing got spoilers in it, so I hope y'all saw the movie by now. The uncle died, so Killmonger's father, which is T'Challa's uncle, died. T'Challa's father died. T'Challa's mother died. Killmonger died. T'Challa, the actor that played him, died. The movie makers killed him off. The son of T'Challa, who we find out about at the end of the movie, now has no father. No problem with the mother. Because, don't get me wrong, in Black Panther 2, Lupita Nyong'o looked good. And she was the fighter in the movie. So she took the time and she got the body type, she wear the suit right, she got her skills right, and she fight right. And she's clearly a strong mother in the movie. There's no issues with her. She's doing her thing. Angela Bassett, strong mother in the movie, did her thing, but they killed her off. And it was corny how they killed her off. Because, I'm sorry, you have to be able to see what actually happened. That assumption they put in there, that's trash. They made Wakanda incompetent in part 2. You find out there's another underwater civilization that got a vibranium like you got it. So the thing that made you special in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because again, it was supposed to be told through the eyes of T'Challa. But since we're making it about Wakanda and the Black Panther, By making another civilization have vibranium and being able to just creep up in Wakanda anytime they want, you just neutralize that entire thing. When Umar reviewed the movie, that was the part he said that I agree with. You neutralize any special, anything special about the actual movie. The moment that you brought in another country with vibranium too, made them look beautiful, right, as a people, which is fine. Representation's fine. But now at this point, you're no longer special anymore. Another thing that went wrong. So you lost an abundance of your leaders. Shuri had no hand-to-hand combat. Lupita could have did that. The maker of the hand-to-hand action in the movie, the actual ability to fight, not just using some powers, that goes to the Dora Milaje. Again, the Dora Milaje hold up the fighting portion of the movie. They make up the fighting portion of the movie. Now, again, in Black Panther 2, for some reason, you made the first movie more balanced in terms of energy between man and woman. You decided to execute the majority woman agenda in the second movie. If I'm wrong, look at my thumbnail. You have an entire rainbow of women and one man over there on the corner. It has nothing to do with women not getting their just due. But you don't have to pit men against women to do it in the Black community. We already have that stigma. So you added on to the stigma. And trying to talk about what women haven't gotten for years, again, goes back to my point. America's trying to move forward and correct problems without correcting the issue in the Black community. So you're damn right it's going to be a big argument. And now what's happening is, instead of just saying that Black people are being treated like shit in general, it's becoming Black women calling men man privilege. So you ignore the fact that you're even in this boat because you don't have a unified culture. Now y'all going to argue against each other. So again, we get slammed in the head with the extra on top of a problem. So, and it's been to the point where people have literally taken Black men and lined them right up next to white men. I don't know what to tell y'all with that. Use that however you want to. So, money made in the movie. Dig this. Now, this was funny when someone said it. Wakanda's supposed to be a great nation, but you keep calling a white CIA man from America to fly your plane. How did that even? That was even an NBC News article at one point. Like, yo, people watching Black Panther 1 are baffled. Like, why is there a white CIA agent necessary here? You said, what movie? We talking about Black Panther 1 and 2. Yeah, Black Panther 1 and 2. Yeah, why, if you have an entire country that's full of millionaires, billionaires, supposed to be the greatest of Black people, because remember, the comic book was made for that reason, to show non-stereotype things of us. If Wakanda's so great, why did you have to get a white CIA agent to be the person to fly the planes in Wakanda? There was no good plane flying person in Wakanda that can match him? Well, there goes the special part about that. So, yeah, chuck that, right? So you had to find a way to get that in there. Now, let's add on top of that what people got paid. Everett Ross is the name of the white CIA agent in the movie in part 2. He made $1 million for his role. Lupita, glad she did, she made $2 million. She was the highest grossing person in this movie. She made $2 million, and I like Lupita. So when she get hers, I'm happy. Danai Gurira made $1.5 million. She was the leader of the Dora Milaje. Well earned. Truthfully, if you ask me, she made up the bulk of what I loved about the action of the movie. If she made the $2 million and Lupita made the 1.5, I'd have been happy with that too. Because Dora Milaje makes up a huge part of what makes Black Panther great. Their fighting capability, their hand-to-hand. They really put in that training before the movie was launched. Letitia Wright, who played the Black Panther in the second one, ain't no hand-to-hand in that. Which is whack. Like, yo, Black Panther is known for hand-to-hand combat. How's there no hand-to-hand really with that? It's lacking terribly in the second movie. Letitia Wright, who played the Black Panther in the second movie, made $700K for that role. And Winston Duke, the main Black male center in the movie, made $500K. And for how much time he had in the movie, I think because the first movie was successful, they could have negotiated more. But if you're lining his pay up to the other pays, okay, cool, because of the amount of time he had in the movie. So some of these things are justifiable based on time in the movie, but not based on the amount of money the movie grosses, which means whoever's doing the negotiation for these movies are not really that good. Because that's part of the case too. People accepting roles on movies that pay a lot of money and no one's negotiating on the back end. But you weren't going to get that kind of negotiation for Letitia Wright. She didn't turn Black Panther into what Robert Downey Jr., I believe I got the right person, did with Iron Man. So, if you don't make somebody bigger than life, Iron Man was not in the list of A ranked characters in Marvel. But the moment Robert Downey played that character, skyrocketed him to damn near the top of the list. He up there in the conversation with Batman and Superman. So he just did the damn thing. So, and again, when I talk about these themes with Black Panther, when I say it's the fatherless child, you'll say, oh, Iron Man didn't have his father. Again, we're talking about representation for the Black community versus other people. You have to take our history and our community into account when we talk about representation, because we are of a unique position. Everyone wasn't pitted against everyone else. Other groups of people had issues with other groups of people, but they weren't made to be looked at as the bane of existence to every group of people. And those of us who do well in our community got to fight to be seen that way before we're ever seen. Oh, I'm hiring a Black person. And in your mind, you're like, let's hope he doesn't run away or he's a lazy worker. And all them stereotypes come in. White person walk into a job, they ain't looking at it that way. They might hope they're not a spoiled brat, but they definitely ain't coming in with the list of shit that comes with a Black person walking in for the first time. You got to be damn near a miracle worker for people to be like, he's one of the good ones. Like, it's a rare thing and shit. That kind of stuff, right? Yeah, you use newer actors to underpay. But, can't even really say but that's how that go, right? That's how that go. That's how business is done. And when you have a people who are special, but they don't know it because they're treated like they're not special, they can't even walk in. They can't even walk in like the business suit man. Like, nah, like, look, in my own community, we got mad acting under my books. I'm showing you by the history I created, like the lexicon I created for myself, that if I stand in your movies, I'm going to do a lot. So you want to make a movie with Black people, if you get a bunch of Black people going off of that movie who are already positive about themselves and where they come from in their community, then chances are you're going to be quicker because it's the new hot thing. You're going to want to put up that money for us to be in there. But if we don't even feel that way about ourselves, I mean, it's real easy to be like, well, you going. I think you was talking about it, Doc. You was talking about it the other day. You were making a point. Are Jewish people the caretakers of the bag on behalf of Black people? That was just the angle you were looking at it as, right? Just to start conversation. There are some people who are like, because the Black community is in such a rut based on the way the world views us. Not that we don't have what we need existing, because it's out there, right? If you combine the bulk of us who are doing good, you got a lot to put on the news and reshape the entire thought on our community. So it's not that don't exist. Every culture is going to have like that smaller chunk of people who do well, who make up the bulk of what's good for that community, and then the poor poverty people on the side who kind of make y'all look bad. That exists in every community. It's just that in our end, people don't really make us thrive by the best of us. They portray our community in the world based on the worst of us, the poorest of us, the things that the poor people do. And then you big up, you make the ones who you make rich in our community are the rappers and the people who saying the negative stuff. Because, for the past couple of weeks, I've been seeing podcast after podcast talk about that, like what's spoken about in our lyrics. And after you do that, the fact that you can stand on stage and those records be made like, oh, this is award winning, which naturally causes more people to listen to it. And then more people listen to it. And then they say, wait a minute, I'm in a Black family. Majority of the time, you're going to be in a poor neighborhood. You're in a poor neighborhood. You're in the hood. And like where I came from, the guy down the street who had the degree, he still was the kind of person who would beat his wife and be mad as shit because he hated his job. He made money, so that wasn't the issue. I'm just in the community that I'm able to get into. I'm making more money than the average person legit, but I still hate my fucking job. And you coming home terrorizing your family. So now they telling you, okay, would you rather be chased by the cops or get killed or be out with drug dealers, or do you want to do the right thing in school and all that? So here's what the kid's looking at. I do right in school. I'm looking at, because no one teaches you can be great young. They teach you, go to school, do good in school, go to college. So now you're looking at what? You're damn near 24 before you really get cracking, right? That's how it's being taught to you. Then you come out, don't you want to get a good job? It's because I work in schools as a photographer. So when I listen to a lot of the schools talk to majority Black and minority students, don't you want to get a good job? I see white people get pulled out of class in the more expensive schools. I don't send you to this school to work for anybody. You work for us, and people work for you. You're going to own something. The message is different. So you in that community, right? So you're like, wait a minute, I could spend years trying to get my life together to be like this dude on my block. The one dude who got the school part going and he looked miserable as shit. And you might got another dude with a degree, he mind his own business, right? Don't touch my car, stop playing football near my car. He keeps to himself, right? But then you got this dude who like he got the degree, but he looked pissed. And it took him years to get that. He like 28 with a master's. Now you as a kid, you looking at that. Then you look over here. These dudes is on the street. Yeah, I ain't trying to get hit by the cops. I'm not trying to be in fights and gun shit. I don't want none of that either. But then the rappers is talking about what the kids who are doing the bad stuff is doing. They talking about the money they got, the women they got, all this, but they talking about the drugs and shoot this and shoot that, carry this, carry that. They talk about it. Don't want to get caught by the police and all that. They let you know what's what. But at the same time, those guys make the records. They get put in the award ceremony and they wearing the hottest fly shit and they on the red carpet and people talking about it. And your parents is watching. Oh, I like his suit and his car and you see the chain and the watch and all that. The same parents who was telling you stay away from that shit. You're watching the music and the actions connect. And the money comes faster, but it comes with a risk of getting killed, going to jail, that kind of risk, right? And then you go to school, you in poverty, the kids is teasing you. You hate getting teased because you ain't got the hottest, flyest thing on, but they do for whatever reason. So you get teased. You stop going to school because you're tired of getting teased. So you're doing bad in school and you stop going to school, right? So you chill on the block. The mans who was over there selling that shit or your friends who was going to school and was selling that stuff, they start talking to you. They ain't trying to introduce you right away, but one day you just look so damn miserable. Yo, run that up the block for me real quick. You thinking about it, you think about what your parents said and how you trying to do good, but you ain't got nothing better to do. You say, all right, let's just run. You convince yourself, just run it up there, run it back. You got a little something small, bring back a quick grand. They break you off a little something, go buy yourself some nice shoes, some clothes and stuff like that. Parents gonna wonder where you got it from. So that's the start of the arguments, right? So you come to school with that hot shit on. Now they're like, oh, he's fresh to death. Those kids start talking about you the way that it reminds you of how the musicians was being talked about in the award ceremony. You're starting to feel what they feel. You're starting to see how important it is to be able to expend on expensive things and dress right and all that stuff like that. Versus get my degree in school and gotta wait till I'm 24, 28 to be like the dude up the block who got a degree and still hate his damn life because he hate his boss. Because he was never given the message of owning any damn thing. And again, I'm not saying these things don't exist. I'm giving you an average situation in the hood. I'm not saying things don't exist outside of it, but I'm showing you my perspective of what was going on when I was growing up. Because I wasn't in there with the hardest of hard. But I saw the ones who went from families who look like, okay, they're in a chill position. We're not in the hardest neighborhood. But the hood tactics and drug deals and stuff was able to pull them in. And then I'm the guy over here, like, I ain't really about that life. Like, something inside of me says, I'm sorry, but when I weigh and measure the possibility of getting caught by cops or going to jail, or my mom was on drugs, so I seen what the drugs do to her. I had enough situations where it's like, it wasn't even close. I didn't have to consider. And I could draw and paint. So there's people patting me on the back saying, he gonna be rich, he gonna be this, he gonna be that. So they made me feel like the future for me was gonna be good. I had enough of the village seeing what I was doing and pushing me in the right direction, even with all the poverty shit going on around me. So that's what separated me, because people always want to know how'd you get out with all the bad stuff going on around you. I'm not the only one who made it out, but the numbers cut the same as it is in society. A few make it out and a lot get stuck in. So this is the dilemma that we live in. So I say all this to say, basically at the end of this live stream, I say all this to say that I review the movie and other movies through the eyes of a man who's American and black. And his history says the world was against him that he lives in. And the rest of the world is coming over here from different countries and making things happen. And they got a place to go where their culture and their way of living has been established, where when they come in, people say, oh, you're Asian, you must be like this or like that. And it's a positive thing. You know, we use the stereotypes, right? You're Asian, you must be good at math and karate and all that, right? Oh, you're European, so that means you probably come from a rich family, well-to-do. You could marry my daughter because you connected with better things in life and ownership and all that, right? You get all this stuff. But when you're black and you're in America, there's no sending you back to a culture. Your culture is exactly where you were born at. which is usually in a poverty-stricken neighborhood. The bulk of us are not born in the richest of neighborhoods and the best of neighborhoods. It's usually the middle point and down in majority of the cases. And that's what the history brought us to. It doesn't say anything about how our history shows that we're not that kind of people, where we own resort towns and beaches and record labels and all that stuff. You hear those in one-off books. Here's a book of a guy who this, Martin Luther King that, Malcolm X that. For everybody else, this person and their people, the people conquered and they did this and they did that. They get looked at as a unified positive body. We get looked at as a unified negative body with a few good light bulbs here and there. And based on the history, every time you got it all right, where you were well-to-do people, people took it from you. Everything keeps getting taken from you. And to this day, you're still getting trick language in the politics and all the different things you're supposed to receive. All of that keeps happening to you. But the world wants to move on and say, let's get along with everybody. Let's share everything with everybody. If the black people get this, the other groups of people should get it too. You want to keep dividing it as if our plight is exactly the same as everybody else's as the American black man. So when I reviewed this movie, it's not just about talking about what it did well and, as a step forward, cool. But we're not somewhere we've never been before as a people. Black Panther is a step forward for black people in a society, in a business that is white. There was a time where a black person in a position that the people who acted in Black Panther and people who have strong communities and things were in, once that was a normal thing. You could go to black communities where it's like, yeah, they businesses everywhere, real estate, and this and that, mechanics and hospital, all that existed. There was times with that, but that don't get pushed in media and in culture. Most of the stuff that get pushed for us is because someone else put a narrative behind us. That's what Black Panther is. It's a black man writing a story about black people with a white twist being put on it to make sure there's white inclusion in a world where, when between black and white is already established. Black is the ones who need the help. So when you take the people who need the help and you say, let me insert myself into it to make sure you know who I am in the story, that's that bullshit. You see what I mean? That's why I brought up the cop Everett Ross. Like, how do I have like the richest nation apparently on earth in Wakanda with the vibranium and all that, and they self-sufficient, know how to fight and attack and all that, but I couldn't find anybody in my damn culture to fly the ships? That's what I'm talking about. That kind of stuff right there, I don't let slip because of where I come from. I'm looking at all the factors. I'm not going to take what's good and say, oh, you're just hating. I love the movie. At least we did this. At least we did that. That's crumbs. Crumbs for the poor people on the floor. You could take what's good and say, y'all could have did better than that. You can do that. Y'all made that kind of money. Put us really into it. Let them pro-black people get a little taste of the script. Not the whole thing, because it's going to be too much on one side. Let us get a little more into that script. Hardcore with that extra seasoning and flavor on it. If it made 1.5 there, watch us make 2 over here. But you don't believe in us that much. And because of the culture, you try and ask a bunch of us, it's almost like our own people going to act like they don't believe in us that much. But I do. And that's what I see. Because I hang around a lot of people who are the best of our community. And that shit adds up. And you start to realize media is full of shit. And our people who are cooning out against us are full of shit because there's so many of us doing good. People are literally judging whether we should receive something or do things as a community based on the worst of us. And if every culture did that, we'd all be in the shitter because in every group of people, the bulk are in poverty and the few are at the top. Because that's how capitalism tends to work. Get as much as you can get and keep getting. Really, it's supposed to be get what you got to get for the problem that exists and get out the way. But in capitalism today, create a problem to keep your business going no matter what. Ain't even no problem. You solve the problem that existed. I'm going to make up another one just to keep my business going. It turned into that. And now businesses got more money than the government to the point where your money can influence the government and its choices. Why? Because you got enough money to ununify the people. And if people ain't unified, only 2 things can help run the world in politics. The money that helps people promote to other people or the people voting themselves. So if you can get more, if you can't get the money, you got to unify people. Because money can't beat people when it comes to politics. But if you ain't got the people or the money, what is you doing? You see what I mean? You hoping. You trying to group up with a bunch of people who are like, I'm glad you playing the game because this is my game I created. So yeah, get in here with us, vote with us, so your family be straight. So as a black person, you're in a position where you have to look out for self and not the group because the group can't unify. where other groups can go back home and say, this is where everything is unified. Sorry, it's a truck in front of me with extra bright lights. And that's what's making it look like I'm crazy right there, right? Brother P Snipes was good. Carly is in the building. But yeah, I got about 10 or so minutes. Y'all got any thoughts out there? Any whatever questions? Did y'all notice something I didn't notice? Is there a way I'm not looking at it? I should look at it. I mean, what it is. Like I said, I came here to give my perspective and drink my water. So y'all tell me. And truthfully, I wanted to do this live stream with way more flair. I was going to show the amount of movies I look at with black representation. I got so many clips, things that I love, things that I think is a problem, but a nice mixture of everything, so you could kind of get an idea, especially for those who are not from the culture, so y'all can really see what the argument is. Where there's a side of us that's like, I'm sick of us complaining and we need to do something about it, and I agree with that. But at the same time, if you one man in a room and there's 20 motherfuckers around you beating your ass, you can't win. I'm seeing both sides of it. And it's like, I see there's a way to win, but that's the side that's attacked the most, which is the unification side. The part where we need those media channels and movies and stuff like that, those big money pictures, where they own majority of the movie theaters. So if you start making something positive for your people, they got the option to say, we're not playing that in our major theaters, because the message will go too wide. But you can, play it in local theaters. And then they're going to say, well, black people, y'all need to get your own theater. And then it takes time. And y'all, I argue so much in the gym about time. I get it. I know things take time. But here's what I also know. Whenever we talk about negative things and bad things, people act like it can happen like that, and it's almost guaranteed. When I try and say there's another positive thing, no matter how impossible it sounds, that can happen just as fast as the bad things can happen, people say, no, it ain't going to be like that. So it's like we're built to lend more energy and frequency to the negative stuff than the positive stuff. If I can create a video tearing my community down that will instantly get thousands and thousands of views, even if we haven't learned how yet, I'm the type of person who believes you can create the same entertainment that builds your community up and get the same type of attention. We may not have figured out that sweet spot, that algorithm yet, but there are some things that make us laugh, that make us look at things positive, that get the same amount of views as the negative stuff. It exists. We just need the formula to keep banging and popping it in so many different locations that eventually, in a short period of time, we start saying like, yo, lately we've been the shit as a people. Like, to the point where people can see that's got to exist at some point. And I believe it can. And I don't believe it has to take like, oh, well, it's going to take years and years and years, because a part of the strategy when you're fighting against the people, if you got a lot of power and that person needs years to get their shit together, you can destroy that. Oh yeah, it's going to take them, like, they can look at it in math. It's going to take them 20 years to fix it. I tell you what, let them get their hopes up. Give them 7 and let them get progress. Then cut that shit. Why? Because the moment we cut it and they try and reestablish it, this time it ain't going to take 20, it's going to take 40. So when you take a small amount of time against the people who can take even smaller time to make a change, then you wind up going far, cutting back short. Then you got to take double the time to get there again, cut back short. Because progress cuts time in half. Falling back doubles and triples time. It's the opposite for the person on the other end. So I hope all this made sense. I hope y'all felt me and what I was talking about. Tried to lay that out as best as I can. Y'all can't say y'all ain't hear my heart, my energy in it, so you can tell it's there. Again, has nothing to do with other communities. Not about dividing men and women. It's not about saying that anything's not positive about other communities. There's nothing wrong with the racial mixing and stuff like that. I'm looking at the position as a black man in America. And as a black man in America, shit ain't so right out there in the world in terms of the perception of us as a community. And when we try and grow things, that the things that hold us back, like, it's not. So if you're the one person I give the biggest argument the most is when I hear people arguing that a black woman or a black man marries someone white and they start arguing that they're pro-black. You may be a supporter of black, but pro-black is all black. That's what it is. That's pro-black. You can't, that's something I agree totally with Umar about. You cannot talk about how great something is and how everyone should have it and you don't go get it. You can't do that. Those two do not mix. But it doesn't also mean you have to tear down. That's why I said it's not totally a bad thing either. It's like you love who you love and you with who you with. That's what it is. But don't try and take that, well, I'm with this person, but I'm the most pro-black person. I'm for black people and I'm all that. You need to, and you say you need to have a black woman and black woman is God and all these different things. And you're with someone white and Swedish. That don't line up. That don't make sense. Because when you have a child and you start talking about how black is beautiful and all that stuff, they're constantly comparing that to your situation. Like, well, damn, I mean, you're saying black is beautiful and all that, but one of the most important things, which is the person you're with, white. So yeah, that argument does not go hand in hand with it. It's fine. Like I said, you can family who you want. I ain't gonna be in there arguing with you like, oh, you married white and you with white. I'm not one of them people. I'm not what they call I forgot the term they use, like a black identity extremist. I'm not one of those people. However, I understand what we have as a people, what the representation of our people should be like. And when that is intact, when we look the way we're supposed to look, I can't even say equal in the eyes of others, because whatever it is to everyone else. But when we have a specific culture and we're not looked at as the bane of existence, at that point, all is fair and well. And then it's like, okay, do what you want to do. But while the shit is hitting the fan, don't try and tell me all is equal, because it's not. All is not equal. Having opportunities and abilities that people didn't have in the past does not make everything equal. It makes things a little bit better on one end. Because as things get better over here, there's a group of people where things are becoming shit. Why? Because you're changing things without putting people on level ground. So there's plenty of bitter people in the background because of that. Why them, not me? And we know a lot of the riches is based on politics. So yeah, I should roll my window down. I didn't talk so much I can see the fog on the window in the back. But that's me speaking my piece, peoples. I'm glad y'all came out and y'all even listened to that. So for those who came out, big up to y'all for listening, understanding. I know people are going to have different points of view about different things. That's cool. Truthfully, if this was like an open forum, I'd have been like, yo, jump on and tear me a new one if you don't agree with something I'm saying, because I formulate the balance within myself by being able to listen to multiple people. I've probably listened to 10 different people review this movie, and more of them were white. And I've even watched the interviews of the people who helped create the movie. And for those who didn't know, they had an original script for Black Panther 2 if T'Challa was still alive. And the funny thing was, it was good. It doesn't represent what I wanted to represent, but it was good for this situation. And they could have still went partially in this direction, but they kind of blew it. But this is what they said. They said T'Challa was going to come back from being snapped away in Infinity War to find out he has a child, and he would have to explain to his child where he was for the last 5 years. Great story. That would have been a great story. And where they hurt themselves, even though he passed away, is not just the fact they didn't have a T'Challa. I get that. That's going to be a personal feeling for different people. I believe we need T'Challa back. It doesn't have to be right away. But the issue was his dad died. There was no funeral. Not even as much of an announcement as one. He just died. Black Panther died, and they're saying that this is current Marvel time. She was grieving, Letitia Wright, who became Black Panther. She was grieving for a whole year. But when T'Challa got snapped away, he was gone for 5 years. And they didn't place the movie after the blip of 5 years. They placed it in current time. So how was he snapped away for 5 years? There's no funeral, no information about them grieving, no storyline according to it. We're going to jump to the future, kill him off, and then Letitia Wright wants the whole goddamn world to burn because she couldn't save her brother, and it's been a year. What the hell? Can we make the argument it was all about her inability to be able to save him with all she knows about technology? Which in this case, they don't tell you what the sickness is. So it's funny. Everyone's running around saying T'Challa died from cancer. They were making that mix up, which is why you're not supposed to make a fictional character's story match a real life person. You're not supposed to do that. You chill with the character for a while because of what happened to the main actor. You chill for a while, give people a chance to grieve. You wait a couple years and bring it back. At least if they would have said, we're going to wait a while to continue that story, we're going to play something in the middle, which is where the 5-year fucking blip should have came in at. Because that's a moment where you wouldn't have had him anyway. Hey, T'Challa was playing his character, passed away. This was during the time where there was the blip in the Infinity War and Endgame saga, which is a perfect time to say this character was not around because of the blip. And you could have told an entire story there. So they're saying they sold the best story they could have told given the circumstances. I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I believe they did what they could do or what they wanted to do, but I'm not going to tell you that they told this type of story on purpose. I don't know. What I can say is dealing with the blip time period, that 5-year time period, would have been a way of going about it. If they did that, I'd have said, you know what? They handled that the best way they could have because they used the 5-year gap. But the story they just told makes no sense. That she's hurt, he's been gone 1 year, and he was gone 5 years. And again, there was no funeral for the father. So that doesn't make sense to me. But anyway, peoples, there it is. That's all my points, my notes that I had, things that I wanted to say. Wanted to get that out in the YouTube streets. So y'all have a good weekend, unless I pop up on somebody's live stream or something soon. If y'all haven't been over to Urban Nerds Worldwide, don't forget we just had a tournament that we took one of the kids to recently, and he got a chance to compete on the main stage. Nothing special in terms of him competing, but he got to experience the professional gaming world. And we have a little bit of documentation, and we got some shout outs to Urban Nerds and all that from that. So go check that out on the Urban Nerds channel when you guys get a chance. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed to the channel already. Write some comments in the chat if you felt differently, which is fine. You know, I'm just laying my thoughts out in the YouTube street. Do that. So until next time, guys, I'm going to go ahead and do my photography thing like I always do out here in the street. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good day.